Hey, all you listeners out there. I'm Zach. I'm here with my co-host Aaron.
Yo.
And you're listening to A2Z Podcast, episode 66.
Today's guest is Gonzalo Alvarez, native Mexican-influenced game designer and illustrator.
It's like they're trying to be too meta.
We're gonna make them an offer they can't refuse.
Much better.
Yeah.
You can buy you a drink. You can't just
Well, I mean, he did pick out somebody we know.
Well, you sidestepped the question. That technology does not exist.
Welcome back, everyone. But if this is your first time listening, thanks for checking us out. A to Z is a Southeast Texas local podcast with new episodes out weekly on all major podcast platforms.
Show notes can be found on atozpodcast.com, but you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram where we post updates, clips, and extra content.
Also, don't forget about A to Z Podcast Group and A to Z Movie Night, the Groupening. We actually did our first live stream.
Yeah, on the Groupening, we did a live stream of the movie night, and I think we're going to experiment on doing the same thing in the A to Z Podcast Group.
Yeah, we've been looking at the switching, and we got some cameras in here, and things are going to get kind of interesting in the next week. But
yeah. On to this episode, though. For real, this was a really great episode. For us, we had a great time. Gonzalo came in. He gave us a nice little picture to hang on our wall. He signed it. He's a real stand-up guy. And really, in this episode, it's kind of dissected in half, basically.
Yeah, because he's done two pretty big things.
Exactly.
He did Borders, which got him national attention.
And that's the first half. So the first half is about the video game that he designed,
but also
and the
about
arcade cabinet.
what happened in his life with it.
And about his background and what happened in his life, you know what I mean? So if you are a person that's like politically charged and you think that a certain type of way about immigrants or something, then this little first half might be for you. You know, you might get a new perspective, or
you can just skip it, because the second half is Legend of Polloman, which is a Mexican Folklore Adventure, and it's a pretty cool thing that he's got signed to a book deal.
It's something that he's working on right now, and you're not going to be able to see it, but let me tell you, like, it's something to get excited about.
Yes.
It's going to be in the same vein as like superhero graphic novels, but like a superhero that you've never seen before. It's based on the folklore of the original people from Mexico. It looks awesome, and I think he's going to do great things, and I think you're going to hear him here, and then maybe in a couple of years, you know, everybody's just going to know about him. So
and also we asked Gonzalo for some music selections that were in line with what we were talking about, the themes in Polloman, and all the music on this episode is going to be Nahuatl-influenced tracks. So if you like this episode, we want to hear from you. Feedback at azpodcast.com. Leave reviews and comments on social, and enjoy this episode with Gonzalo Alvarez.
that's cool.
Kind of gets us in the zone a little bit.
That's cool.
Kind of gets us in the zone a little bit.
That's cool.
Kind of gets us in the zone a little bit.
That's cool.
Kind of gets us in the zone a little bit.
That's cool.
Kind of gets us in the zone a little bit.
That's cool.
Kind of gets us in the zone a little bit.
That's cool.
Kind of gets us in the zone a little bit.
That's cool.
I hate to ask, do you guys have any water?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Let me grab
anything.
one. I got you.
I totally left it in the car.
No, we absolutely do in the mini fridge over here.
Oh, nice. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
Gonzalo, what's this scepter here? What's that?
That red thing or the green thing?
The green.
Oh, the green
the
thing.
little green guy.
Yeah, the little scepter. So that's El Raton. So that boss is the Mexican tooth fairy.
Okay, cool. That's awesome.
It's El Raton
De los dientes.
Dientes.
Yeah.
Is that like
the
accurate?
tooth
That's
rat?
folklore.
Yeah, that's
Tooth rat?
Yeah. So
I love it.
growing
That's
up,
so cool.
it wasn't a fairy. It was a mouse who wanted to put teeth in his mouth. Or this is what my mom told me. She was like, he would take the teeth of kids and put them in his mouth because he wanted to look more human. And so in exchange, he would leave money behind. And I thought that was so creepy.
That was the creepiest.
It's like, I'm gonna take this tooth, but I'll pay you for it.
Yeah. And so,
I mean, I don't know if it's any creepier than the tooth fairy, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's pretty creepy.
she's pretty creepy
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
It's just
I'm a lot cooler with like a rat coming in. It's like, hey,
Yeah, that makes more
guys,
sense. Well, the whole one
you're not
to look
using
more
this
human
You're
thing.
not using this tooth anymore, are you? Like, all right,
I'll give you money for it too, and that's a really
The tooth
polite.
fairy is like a lady like breaking and entering. Like,
That is
you know what I
true.
mean? Like,
But then you see
sneaking around.
European depictions of the Tooth Fairy, and she's
creepy.
terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
She's creepy. Yeah.
Horrifying.
Yeah, I've seen those things. The etchings are really creepy.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's kind of one of the bosses in the underworld, and he commands these little rats. He can like turn into millions of rats or combine
okay.
into one big one.
Mecha rat.
Yeah, they all have their like special sort of ways they kind of mess people up.
We're recording, so we might as well we'll just kick it off. We'll start. Just introduce yourself. Gonzalo Alvarez. Thank you for coming, man. What's your story, man?
Man, let's see where to even start. So, I grew up in Port Arthur my entire life. I've been there since I was 1 year old. So, yeah, I need to see something new for once. So, Beaumont was nice to get out too.
Yeah,
but
it's familiar, but not. Yeah,
yeah, right. But yeah, like I was born here. I was the first to be born in America, and my parents had crossed over from Mexico about 20 years ago. Yeah, it was just growing up here in America. It was just kind of, it was hard. You know, I had to learn English. I didn't learn English till first grade, so like my first language was actually
your home
Spanish.
was pretty mostly Spanish speakers.
Yeah, and I thank them for that because like there's a lot of Spanish or Mexican or Latinos who don't know Spanish because their parents tried to assimilate.
There's something funny that I've noticed, and I have some Hispanic friends who speak English. They don't know Spanish, but they still speak English with a Spanish accent.
That's
and I found it
interesting.
really interesting.
That is pretty interesting. They probably picked it up from their parents.
Yeah.
Like my parents. Luckily, my dad got to learn a little bit because he had to work in America. Like he did the whole picking at the farms and stuff. And he got a citizenship through like the I think it was the Ronald Reagan amnesty back in like the 80s.
Yeah.
So he was able to get a citizenship.
Imagine that conservatives were wanting amnesty.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Right? Yeah,
Crazy.
it is crazy. And so yeah, it's just like a lot of my background is the reason that led me to creating what I am today. I didn't really grow up with art. You know, I didn't have a fine art piece in the house other than maybe like that Walmart generic house or flower
or like
pot.
the Hobby Lobby or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. Not even. My parents didn't even know what Hobby Lobby was, man.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, going to school and college and learning about art and stuff, I just, it was like I knew I liked drawing growing up, but going to college was like, okay, now I know.
Did you go to school for art?
Yeah.
Okay.
I went to Lamar for my bachelor's in studio arts.
Okay.
And then I kind of changed focus to drawing because I really enjoyed drawing.
So your title is illustrator, right?
Yeah. And but yeah, they definitely didn't show us this kind of stuff. They, fine arts and which really helped to be able to get to this.
Yeah, it gives you
Like a lot of life drawing. And
Yes,
gives you a
hell of a
baseline.
lot of life drawing.
Yeah.
But Christopher Troutman, the new Lamar professor that they had, he really pushed me a lot, and he kind of let me kind of do my own thing, seeing that I was actually learning some new stuff. So I was kind of one of the first to do these sort of comic type projects and kind of prove that, they can be a part of the sort of fine art criteria in a sense.
Sure. I mean, comics, dude. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, comics is art, and it's
Absolutely,
been
yeah.
made for since the 30s, or since even further than that, like penny novels or whatever those things were called.
Right. Yeah.
But we're gonna get to, because you have
they were called pulps.
pulps. That's right. You have a graphic novel that you're working on, or I guess it would be a comic, or
Yeah.
But we're gonna get to that.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, let's,
Legend of Polloman. But one of the things that a lot of people might recognize you from is you created this game called Borders a couple years ago, which actually got you a lot of press. I mean, it was on HuffPost. What else? It was several
I
different
saw it.
outlets.
I think I saw
Washington,
Vox,
Vox, Me Too.
like Now This, all that
Now
stuff.
This.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I got to play it a little bit. Just I didn't get very far because it's kind of tough.
It's kind of hard,
Yeah.
right?
It's
Well,
kind of
see,
tough.
That's my question too. Is so we're talking about this. You're an illustrator, and you're making a comic book. Why would you start with a video game first? Like you weren't going to school for coding.
Yeah.
You were going to school for illustration. So it seems like a strange a strange like sort of timeline.
Right.
You know?
No, it really is. So I started working on Polloman in 2015.
Wow. Okay.
And then 2016, I was watching the news and Trump was running for president, and I was just like, shit, like there was just so much hate started to kind of grow around people, like especially towards immigrants. I started seeing like it was just like I went my entire life, like it was there, but then it was just like all of a sudden 2016 is like this big deal, like immigrants.
Something ignited.
Yeah, it was like, wait, what? What's going on? I've been an immigrant. My parents were immigrants and all this stuff. And now it's like a big deal. And so anyway, I just like, that angered me and upset me because my parents, they were immigrants. And my mom, my dad had to cross her over because she wasn't going to be able to get.
Wait, so he crossed and then went back and crossed again with your mom?
Yeah.
Wow.
So my dad came legally through the amnesty. And then,
now, if you come legally, do you still have to cross through?
So you come legally, you can go back and forth, because then you get your citizenship and stuff. But
that was back when you didn't have to have a passport to go to Mexico from America, too.
Right?
So,
but then
things were a little more cool back then.
Yeah, and then my dad went back to Mexico to visit because he got lonely being here by himself with just a couple of his brothers.
Well, that's a common story because I know several people who immigrated who their wife and kids are just in Nicaragua or wherever they're from.
Yeah, and my dad came back and he fell in love with my mom, and but he couldn't bring her legally because he had papers, she did not. So they actually, they crossed the border. They spent 3 times. They used the tunnels to try to get through.
Wow.
And, you can see it in many different ways. People of different political, backgrounds. But the matter of fact comes down to, there was no way she was going to be able to, because my parents don't come from privileged backgrounds. They don't have money, or they didn't have money. They didn't have those privileges that other people who did could,
Is it easier for more well-to-do Mexican people to get in, to get visas? And
if you got money, dude, you can. It's like skipping the line, getting up there. What you're gonna wait 10 years, 20 years to get to where you want to be. People don't have that time to just kind of sit around sometimes.
Especially whenever you're in a bad spot.
Exactly, especially when you're in a bad spot, and so. All in all, they just wanted their kids to have a better life. They wanted me to be able to have, I guess, podcasts and all this stuff, Being in Mexico and growing up wherever I would have grown up, I don't know I'd be in this, this position.
Right. You wouldn't be here.
Exactly. And so in 2016, like I said, that all those things kind of started coming up. And I was playing a video game called Papers, Please at that time.
I think is it Russian or German?
No, it's like the Nazi. That's like the Nazi game where you're on a train and you have to like
you're like checking everybody's papers and make decisions.
It's it's like basically these immigrant people come and they basically they have to show
a short story.
Yeah. They're like, hey, I'm getting away from this country because they're gonna kill me, and then it's like, okay. You need this paper and this paper. Well, if she doesn't have it, what do? Do you approve or deny her? Mm-hmm. And then both sides have consequences. You approve her, even though she doesn't have it, then your kids are going to get sick and then you won't have the money to pay for it or something. Yeah. So it has this really nice risk reward stuff. And anyway, I was like, well, this is interesting. This game made me feel morally conflicted. What if there was a game where you played as the border or as the immigrant?
As the other side of it.
Instead of the Border Patrol agent.
Yeah.
And so that's where that kind of idea sparked. I sketched something out and I was like, but shit, I don't know how to code.
Yeah.
I don't have time to learn how to code. I'm going full time to school, working and all this stuff.
So you've never even thought of doing a game before that?
I've always wanted to be a game designer. I was working with a game with some game designers from here, with this idea, but they're those type of people who just don't do shit. So it's they just kind of wasted my time for a year.
The big talkers, pipe dreamers.
Yeah. Big talkers, pipe dreamers. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I went to Indicate East in New York, It was the first con thing that I've ever went to, and I didn't know
With the purpose of
with the purpose of kind of like making connections and being like, okay, how do I do this? Where do I start? I know how to do art, and I have this idea. I just don't know how to code. And while I was there, I went to panels, met a lot of great people, and then specifically I met two guys, Genaro Vallejo Reyes and John DiGiacomo, who ended up becoming my friends. And I went back to Texas, and I was like, look, guys, I want to do a game jam. And it's kind of like a hackathon thing where it's like you get 1 week to complete something. And because, like I know the whole like, oh, we're going to make the best game ever, and it takes like forever, and then you never finish it. So we took 7 days, worked full-time for 7 days straight, and by the end of those 7 days, we had Borders completed.
So Borders was done in 7 days.
Pretty much. The base of it was done in 7 days. I think like later that December, we did like a little update. Like we just redid the map.
Fixed some things, updated some things.
But for the most part, yeah, it was in 7 days.
Wow.
And we released it in July 4th of 2016, and that was a shitty year to release time to release anything.
Kind of. Wasn't a shitty time to release Borders, I guess.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like the height of that.
Pretty relevant at the time.
Well, what happened was in 2016 when I released it, it was only digital. But then in 2017, 2 years ago, I proposed to the dean over, not the dean, I'm sorry, the chair over at Lamar. And I was like, hey, could I get a scholarship for creating an arcade cabinet? I really want to make an arcade cabinet for this game. And the reason was because in the game, so you've played Borders, and I don't know if you realize when you die, there's a skeleton.
Because I died like within like 2 steps. I got caught.
A lot of people do.
Yeah. So is there just a pile of bodies there on the console game?
Yeah, there ended up being, so I made the arcade cabinet, and for that entire month, people were playing it at Lamar.
At Lamar, okay.
Yeah, I had it at the Little Soul Gallery, and there was over 1,000 skeletons by the end of that month. And it's
so
like
just littered.
Yeah, just littered. And because I made it an arcade cabinet, I didn't have to sit there and explain the game to anyone, and people didn't have to go up to a computer. They had this nice
the little illustrations on the side where it was like, this is your move, this is this.
Yeah. And it's like, that's what I wanted, was to make a cabinet so people could walk up to it and just like, it's like this cabinet is collecting these bodies of people.
Well, it has more meaning to it than just like what I did, just download the game, play it a little bit,
Right.
That kind of can become forgettable. But
It becomes like a community sort of thing, because you start to see these skeletons and you think, oh, that's another player who played, or that's someone else who played. And the thing is, you don't know who that is. It's just a skeleton, a nameless skeleton. And that's inspired because my dad, on his 3rd time crossing, found a dead skeleton of someone in the desert.
Just laying there.
And you can't identify it. It's like the heat,
Dang, like a cartoony bleached skeleton? Like it's been there for
just
years
like,
and years?
like the ones in the video game.
I mean, I don't know if they would have been that white or bleached, but
he probably was trying to take it easy on you, telling you that when you
maybe,
were a kid.
maybe,
probably pretty gruesome. I can imagine.
Yeah, and it's just like as a kid, you don't really understand those concepts.
Yeah.
But then, like as I was older, I was like, shit, like he saw this in the desert, and so that was my whole idea: was do this in a game setting, have people see it, and then realize like. Imagine this is how many people die crossing the border. Over 500 people every year. And I think it's significantly dropped the last year.
Really?
But it's still, it's still a problem. And that's because a lot of the tactics they use are very immoral. The Border Patrol agents. They go up and they cut jugs open. So people leave behind jugs. So those jugs you find.
Yeah, they stash them. Yeah, I've read things like that. Like
there's actual people who go out, leave behind jugs for those who are crossing over. And then the Border Patrol go and cut them, piss in them, just desecrate them. Just so they don't have that water to survive. Other times they'll, break large groups apart by, playing chicken with their vehicles and trying to kind of get them to spread out. And then there's stories. Like I read this one story of this mom who was already over in America, and her son was crossing, and the last text she got from him was, "I'm lost out of here in the desert." She never heard from him again. And so he essentially became those skeletons. You know, you don't know what happened. Is he gone? Is he still lost? You don't know. And so, yeah, that was just the statement.
So do you think the political climate that we were in at that time, and these are probably things that you had thought about because it was just part of your life, the stories you heard, it's what you grew up in and what you came from. But do you think having the climate change like that and seeing what happened and how people's anger and fear and all those things come to light kind of clicked for you?
Yeah.
It made you really look at it with more importance, I guess, right?
It made me feel like I had to say something. You know, like me as an artist and as someone who kind of lived in that, you know, household, I had to say something. And so we did the gallery thing, and luckily I was in Austin. It was like a couple of days before the thing was going to be pulled down. I was in Austin with a graphic design team for like a field trip, and I got an email from Huffington Post, and they were like, can you respond to us by this time because I have to publish the article or whatever. So I sat in the bus instead of going into A&M and doing whatever we were going to do. And yeah, I just like pulled out my mobile hotspot and tried to write it as fast as possible. And it went up. And then that next day, when the Huffington Post thing went up, Washington Post, like Univision, Telemundo.
And then all the little people, all the little news stations sharing it, and it blew up.
It blew up. My email inbox was just full of interviews back to back. I actually stopped going to school that week. I had so many interviews back to back, like not even funny. It was just like
and
every
look at
2
you.
hours.
And now you're on A to Z.
Now you're on A to Z.
Now I'm on A to Z, man.
Crazy is it?
I'm glad our interview
going up.
request didn't get buried.
Yeah,
I DM'd him on Instagram, so maybe that was the trick.
Yeah, DMs work. I see those DMs.
That's great. So what? So just talking on that for a little bit. Like, what was that like?
Man,
how did it feel, the response? And I'm sure you got positive and negative responses because of
I'm sure.
where we are. But
well, at first it felt like, I fucking told you so. Like to a lot of people who were telling me, because I spent a lot of money and time on this project, like I spent, a full week worth of work plus more. I spent, over $500 on just like the cabinet and all this stuff. And it was like, it was an investment.
Well, also props to Lamar for giving you,
for
helping fund something like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty
No,
cool.
seriously, the faculty at Lamar is, they really encourage you to do stuff. So I really enjoyed my experience there. But yeah, it was just that feeling. And then the other feeling was like, oh shit, now that I am on the spotlight, like what I say,
It's a lot of weight.
It's a lot of weight. Like I had to kind of make sure I was well informed on what I'm talking about. And then on top of that, I hadn't really spoken in Spanish for like, I guess with, I would say like more educated words in a sense, like,
Oh, sure.
Existential crisis and all this. I didn't know how to express that in Spanish. And so I had to kind of Google like, how do you say existentialism in Spanish?
How do you say existentialism in Spanish?
Shit, I forgot. See, I had studied
You
it.
were honed back then.
I was
I would have
studied
figured
it.
it'd be the same word, honestly.
Existencial.
Yeah,
I think it's
something like that.
existencial.
Yeah.
But so that was kind of scary. And so it was just a weird experience also. Like at some point I was just kind of like,
Did you do TV?
yeah. I was on the I think the number one daytime talk show in Latin America, Despierta America. It's like a Wake Up America. And it was just like
Is that Univision or Telemundo? Or?
I think it's a Telemundo thing.
Wow.
But it was like I was on the TV, and it's like I remember as a kid.
It was like a streaming thing?
Yeah.
They did it by
was
satellite?
live.
That's great.
And I remember like as a kid watching my mom watch this show.
Oh, yeah.
And then they would always feature someone
Yeah.
that's doing something. And then I'm like, shit, I'm on there now.
Yeah.
And like
That's pretty surreal.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
it's really crazy. It's like, I don't know, it's like being on like, SNL or something. Like it's just like, what?
Yeah.
Why? How? But Yeah, it was just honestly a weird experience, and I didn't know how to take it for the first couple of weeks. I honestly had a lot of stress.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're in college.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I was going full time to college, and then I had to kind of keep up with all this, and I didn't realize how stressful that was going to be for me, and I feel like a lot of people didn't realize how stressful it was because I didn't really want to be like, man, this is stressful, and people be like, what are you talking about? You should be happy, you know? Because like I just didn't want to, because especially with media now, it's like you do one thing wrong, you can get destroyed.
They can take a 3-second clip
For sure.
and make you look like an idiot.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah.
And plus, you also, it's not just that you're representing yourself, but you're also representing where you came from and something you believe in.
Yeah.
You know, and it would suck to get attention for something that you believe in and then do it a disservice by misspeaking or something. Like
Or just being misrepresented.
misrepresenting.
Yeah.
That's more like
And I actually kind of had something like that happen. I had like a couple of like Mexican people think that I was doing a parody on or a satire piece.
like it's funny or something.
Yeah, like I devalued or made it satirical.
They're like, how dare you make this a cartoon?
Well,
In a
I
sense,
hate
yeah.
I hate to say, whenever we reached out to you earlier, I think earlier this year or last year, I looked for, I couldn't find the name of it, and I don't know why it was because I found it a minute earlier.
Mhm.
But I found one called Border Crossing. It was horrible. So
oh shit, yeah.
I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just I
It's
think
like
you're
a
playing.
stupid click game.
Yeah, but I think you're playing the border agents, and it's just like
And
it's
you're
really distasteful.
Yeah.
Oh, was it like
You're shooting like Mexicans running.
Yeah.
And,
Oh,
and
sure.
it's like a point and click. Like you gotta click.
Yeah,
them.
don't play that game.
was
guys.
that funded by Ted Nugent? I guess I don't know.
Ted Cruz? you mean?
Maybe one of them.
Yeah.
There's some money in there from those names, but
So you had people who thought that you were making light.
yeah, there was on my side of the community. I would say, yeah, there was a lot of people, or a couple of people, who thought I was making light of the situation. But then definitely on the other side, there was so many racist people. I even
Don't read the comments
on my
man.
panels that I do. I always have the comments from the local Channel 12 News Beaumont Facebook page. Because they did a story
you
on
looked
me.
in those comments?
Oh yeah.
Those comments are
It's a
cancer, dude.
shit
Oh
show,
my
man.
god, dude. It was, dude, I had people saying, you fucking roach, go back to where you came from. And I'm just like,
I'm an American, man.
You go back to Port Arthur? What are you, what are you
okay,
talking about? That?
where? I mean, I'm from here. Yeah, it's just, it's ridiculous. And so many people being like, let's dox this guy and get his parents, like, sent back to Mexico. And I'm like, well, I mean, they're citizens now, so there's not much you can do.
Yeah.
But it's just like that hate, like, how can people get just so angry about,
It's fear.
Honestly, I don't
Yeah.
know. I really don't. I don't understand it.
Well, I mean, okay, so there's a lot of the doxing people they're just angry trolls.
Yeah.
And that's just what, if it was any kind of topic, they would be the same way. So
I
no,
guess so.
yeah.
I think.
I still understand how, and it's a thing here, but I'm sure it's a thing everywhere. I don't understand how people use like the word Mexican as like a race. Like they use it as a race because I mean the real name of Mexico is United States of Mexico. There's at least 1 million people that live in Mexico that look exactly like me. And for those of you who don't know what I look like white Jesus. I mean, like, I just don't understand how people use that. I mean, in Florida, they use like Cuban as a race. It's just like, I don't know, man. I don't get it. It seems really silly. It's like nationalism hiding as racism. Like, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Well, and a lot of the border things seem to be that way. It's like, I don't know, all the people that have such a huge problem with immigration laws, I don't know, on the surface they seem to be racist, but I don't really think they are. I think they just might be like super scared.
I think it's
or
fear.
something.
I mean it's and the rhetoric brought up by the right and
yeah, because when you watch Fox News, it's like they're gonna come over and like rape your babies and stuff like that. So
I mean there are some bad guys coming from Mexico, drugs and all that stuff, but that's not. I mean, shit, most of the immigrants are just people like your parents. They're trying to make a better life because it's not working there.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you can't see it black and white. It's like it's not, one or the other. It's just a lot of things, but majority is not people wanting to come do any of those things. If anything, we have those people already here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, we got Netflix series about them, you know?
Yeah, Narcos, you know?
Well, I mean,
like-
people are people everywhere, you know, really. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's bad people here. There's bad people in Mexico. There's bad people in
Yeah.
everywhere, you know?
Yeah, and I think the main thing is, like, people really forget, especially that here in Texas, that there was Mexican people in Texas a long
Way
time
before we
ago
were.
before we were.
And
like,
then, hey, on top of that, though, the people that weren't Mexican that were here were Czech and German and
Yeah.
Scottish.
What are you talking about, Six
they
Flags
were
in
all
Texas?
they were all immigrants. Like everybody that was in Texas is an immigrant.
right. It's just, and so that just baffles me. It's like there's literally people that there's no go back to Mexico because this was a part of Mexico at some point, and there's people who've been here for generations since that time. So it's like people just need to learn their history, man.
Yeah,
Like I had to learn my own.
We're
history.
actually interviewing Sarah Bellion after this one.
Oh,
cool.
Yeah.
So I can't wait. Maybe we'll talk about Texas history again.
Texas. Yeah.
I love Texas, man. And so whenever you were getting a lot of attention was 2016, and we're talking about a lot of kind of weird stuff right now. But even right now, the cycle that just passed, where it was the Texas senatorial race,
Yeah.
and we had like Beto running. There was a lot of racism against Beto, where people were like being racist against him for being white, and they were like, "Stop pretending to be Mexican." You know,
Right.
there was a lot of that going on, and we were like, "Bro, he lives in El Paso. What are you talking about, man?"
Yeah,
They
you
were
grew
like,
up in El Paso, but that's-
like Ted Cruz was putting out like slanderous
Texico.
tweets where he was like, "Oh yeah, he's calling himself Beto." Like, oh, what does he think he's Mexican? Like, come on,
That's
dude.
Come on,
my-
Ted Raphael.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ted-
all right, Raphael. Yeah,
It's
it's the strangest thing, man. I just wish everybody would drop it. Like, it's making me so tired.
So good things that came from Borders.
but there's past all those things, the other good thing was, on top of all these interviews and everything, I actually got invited to 2 festivals. I got invited to Sheffield Doc Fest in the UK, which is like a documentary film festival.
wow.
But they saw Borders as this sort of documentary type project. And then on top of that, I also got invited to E3,
Wow.
Oh,
which was
cool.
just like, what? You know, I
That was
just
probably like checklists from childhood. Right
yeah,
there it is,
exactly.
Are you been playing video games?
Oh yeah,
You're a
man.
video game.
I've been playing games since I was, since I could talk in Spanish and English. I've been playing Pokemon since I was like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
That was my baby. But it was just an amazing thing because I remember I was such a nerd growing up. I would watch the E3 show every year.
Yeah, same.
It was like the Super Bowl for me.
Yeah.
I'd get like popcorn and
Oh yeah, dude.
It's like I'm ready to see that gameplay demo. Come
Non-stop
on.
E3
Right.
coverage on G4
Yeah.
TV. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so being able to be there was like, it was one of the most amazing experiences.
Yeah.
So I had to decide, though. That was a really tough choice because I had to decide, do I go to England, this whole new country I've never been to that I'd love to go to, or do I go to E3, the biggest game festival in the world? And so what ended up happening was my co-creator, Henaro, he went to UK where I went to E3.
Oh, that's good compromise. Yeah.
So yeah, we got to hit both of them, and it was really great for him too because he got to, meet a lot of good people over there, and I got to meet a lot of game devs over here.
Yeah.
I got to see things like behind curtain, like as they were setting up the E3 stuff. Man,
Yeah.
they put a lot of money in this thing.
Oh, it takes them a week to set it all up.
Yeah,
Did you get a booth or anything?
yeah.
Out of E3?
So I was a part of the Indicate booth. So the Indicate selected a couple of indie developers from around the world, and then we had our own section. So it's like the indie people, and then you have the AAA big guys. And so Borders was selected, and my friend John DiGiacomo, the other guy who helped program it, because like I said, I don't know how to do shit with programming.
Yeah.
I just animated, did the color,
Yeah.
the game design, and stuff like that. But he flew in from Japan because he was on like vacation, and we just kind of sold the game and talked to people and met. Man, I had so many interviews back to back while I was there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Just a short snippet with the microphone in your face.
yeah. And there was like people who like set up appointments for you, and they were like, okay, Mr. Gonzalo, you have an appointment for this interview. And I was like, man, I feel so special.
You had like an assistant in a way.
Yeah. But the funniest thing is, I didn't get to see a goddamn game that entire time.
Really? You're too busy?
I was so busy.
man.
I didn't
That's too
get
bad.
to play any games.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were like, man, how was it and stuff? I was like, dude, I don't even know what the hell was announced.
Yeah.
Like, you tell me what happened.
Yeah.
That's what I tell people about my job. I go to do shows like, hey, how was it in Florida? I was like, I don't know. I just saw the back of the venue in the dumpster.
Yeah.
And I got craft services, and that's pretty much it.
Bro, tell me all about the Bethesda panel. Okay, I can't tell you.
So I mean, you got a lot of attention for this. Were people hitting you up to try to do more games or?
Yeah. So with Borders, it kind of led to how I was able to kind of push Polloman in a sense.
Yeah, because you were already working on it before.
Because I was already working on it. I did start working on a project that kind of died, but I did that for like one of my final projects for drawing class. It was like a, paleo. It was called Paleo Hunter, and it was basically a sort of capture the flag style tribe versus tribe game, but the flag is a live animal. And so it's like you're both trying to get this live animal that can also attack you back. It was a fun little thing, but I kind of had to drop it. But last year, with an artist that I admired, he reached out to me, and we started working on a platformer Aztec video game. So
Was that still in the works then?
it's still in the works, but there on my website for my studio, there is like the concept art for it.
Gonzinc.com.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
gonzinc.com or Makwa Studios.
And we'll share all these in the show notes too.
Yeah. But we started working on that. A lot of people are like, when's Borders 2 coming out? And I'm just like, it's not really that type of game.
It's more of a statement.
Right. And it's like, and a lot of people also gave me shit for not selling it. And I'm just like, because it's
I gave you $1 for it.
oh, dude, thank you. Dude, I'll have to pick something up with that. But yeah, it's like, but it's
Pack of
like,
gum, maybe.
yeah, a pack of gum. It's fine. But that's what people didn't realize. It was like, I wasn't trying to, because I had some people telling me like, man, you're making this game. You think you're going to, make money like Call of Duty. No one wants to play that. And I'm like, dude, it's not about the money.
Yeah,
Well, it's not even that type of thing, like
Right.
at all. Yeah.
To me, it's an art piece.
it's an expression.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's an
it's-
expression of something.
Exactly. And so yeah, that was just a frustrating element of it. But getting the success from it, now I can tell people there was so much more value in it, not monetarily, but I mean, look at
Exposure.
all the press that I was able to get from it. Look at all the connections I was able to make from it. So
And that's enabled you to do what you're doing now.
exactly.
Right. I mean, how easy is that to twist that and get like published? Do you think you might have got published if you would have had all that?
You wouldn't have all that press.
I would say
I would like to say yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I really
Yeah.
would. Right. Because you're a very talented
Thank you.
artist. I would like to say you would. But how much longer would it have taken? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would say I definitely wouldn't be with it where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Because Borders was kind of like this really big push and boost.
Mm-hmm.
And then Polloman, a lot of people contacted me for Borders that are now contacting me for Polloman as well.
Yeah.
The other great thing about Borders was it gave me the experience to do panels around
Okay.
the world. I actually, last year, I was flown out to Mexico and I gave a panel at one of the largest university in Mexico. And I've given panels at UCLA, the University of Los Angeles. I'm actually about to fly out next month to Fresno, to the State California University to speak in public to a body of students about my work. And I just finished doing, another one the other day. And so it's just like, it gave me a lot of educational opportunities to kind of share my story, especially to like younger Latin American kids who grew up like me, no arts, no like push towards arts. Because growing up, it was like, you're going to go work at the refineries. You're going to go make money.
Sure,
you're
sure.
going to
raise a family.
do the whole shindig. And that just wasn't what I wanted. And I feel like a lot of Latin American kids are kind of pushed into blue collar work because they feel like that's the only thing they can do. And no, I want basically it's like, look, guys, you can freaking do this. I didn't like.
You're not special.
I'm not special. Like I didn't have money or artistic parents or any of that. I just kind of the one thing I had was work ethic, and that's what I feel like was what got me. It's like just work at it. Doesn't matter what it is, but you'll get it. You just got to keep going.
Well, we'll take a little break on that, and we'll get back and we'll talk about the Legend of Polloman.
Yes, that's my favorite one.
Hey guys, this is Zach, the cornerstone of A to Z Podcast. A to Z Podcast is funded in part by our patrons at Patreon. If you would like to support us, head over to patreon.com/A2ZBMT.
All right, guys, welcome to the mid-show break. This is a portion where we like to highlight a few things going on in your area.
Yay.
And on Wednesday, March 13th at 9 p.m. at the Red Room Lounge, that's on Crocker Street, if you've been under a rock, we have David Liebhart with Chip and Rob Wells and Black Midi. If you don't know, David Liebhart is of Tim and Eric fame.
Tim and Eric and Adult Swim, a lot of good stuff.
And Adult Swim, he's kind of a weird guy, kind of an eccentric act. But it's $8 in advance or $10 at the door, and you can also get tickets on artbyliebhart.com/tickets.
Yeah, and Saturday, March 16th at 7 p.m. at Rick and Jack's Inviter, we're going to have a book release for Kelly Brewer's book, The Deepening, First Contact. And from my understanding, somebody found some actors to act out and basically exist on the scene as characters from the book. So that should be a pretty interesting experience, I'd say.
And if you don't know Kelly Brewer, he used to run the FNTX internet radio station, all that stuff. So it's a local person who wrote a book, and I think we should support that, right?
Hell yeah, and it should be an interesting time.
Yeah, if nothing else, you just get to go and be entertained by the weirdness.
Yeah. And if that isn't enough music for you all weekend, March 17th on Sunday is Bo Jam 2019. It's going to be an $8 cover. Doors are at 2, all ages welcome, but there's like 10 or 15 bands on here. There are vendors. You're going to have art getting sold there. Boomtown's going to be there. P-Flag's going to be there. It's just going to be a good time. It's put on by Livy and all the guys at Victoria House.
It's going to be one of those like calendar year events, you know what I mean? Where if you're the type of person who says Beaumont's really boring and you miss this, then it's your own damn fault, right?
Exactly.
Like events like this come around like maybe 10 times in a year, so definitely get out and make it out.
Get out there. It's the South by Runoff show. You got some out-of-town bands coming. Back to the show.
And it's just like high quality, it's nice. And then when I'm playing some more artistic like Mario.
Well, you're talking about like Papers, Please. Like, come on, that is lo-fi as fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
lo-fi has got its own aesthetic,
Absolutely.
One of the games, I've been playing a game on my phone that I've really liked, and it's called Reign, REIGN. And it's basically like it's a swipe left or right. And you get this card, and it says you're a king. They give you a name, and they start you in a year, and it's like, how far can you get before you're overthrown or you die?
Oh, that's cool.
So it's choices like a wizard will come up to you. It's like, and you have these four.
So it's a choose your own adventure book.
You have these 4 health bars. You have the church, you have the military, the people, and money. And every decision makes those bars go up and down. If any of those bars gets too high, like if you have too much money, then you're going to get overthrown because you're too rich as a king.
You're a tyrant.
If your people are too happy, then they'll be like, we're gonna start a democracy, and you'll live a happy life. All this stuff, like, so there's all these different things.
That sounds. What's it called? Reign.
Reign. It's
like
super deep. It's
REIGN,
like the reign of the king.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Reign. Okay.
Yeah, like
Reign
that's a fun little game. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, it's a little.
It's hard to find good mobile games for me.
Yeah,
it's hard to
I
find
try.
good mobile games for everybody.
Yeah.
Because
it's all Candy Crush and like Rock of Ages.
All the free to play games are like they're the ones that always get you to the first page in like your app store. All the artistic ones are the ones that are buried, or you have to actually like watch a YouTube video where somebody's like, "Yeah, play this game," and you have to like look it up. and you even have to like spell it exactly right, or you'll get like somebody that's
Yes.
yeah. It's
Or you'll get like a copycat.
Like
Right.
the rip-off
Bullshit.
copy,
It's such
like
an-
Border Crossing.
Borders is actually on the Android store.
is
Okay.
Yeah, but I couldn't put it on the Apple store because they thought it was too controversial.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I was on a fight. I fought with them on the phone.
Man, Apple's such a pussy.
And yeah, I fought with them on the phone and stuff.
Yeah.
And like, I literally was looking at a video game. It was
Maybe they
like,
played Border Patrol first, and they were like,
Probably.
Oh yeah.
and the reason was because they said it might offend many of our users, and I'm just like, then fuck your
are your
users.
users
dude.
racist?
Like, they didn't want to lose that money, you know.
Yeah, it's because they're pussies.
Well, it's because they're making their most money off of Candy Crush and stuff like
Yeah.
Of Candy Crush?
that. Oh, they're killing it. Yeah, because Apple
no,
gets
Candy
a cut.
Crush
Apple
is
gets
making their money off
Apple
that.
gets a cut out of
Oh, yeah, that's
out
true.
of transactions
Candy Crush
made.
is just
Dude, at the height of Candy Crush, you know how much they were making?
Mm.
They were making $378,000 a day
Jesus.
God damn.
at their height.
Jesus.
Yeah, definitely didn't make that much with Borders.
No, yeah, definitely didn't. You wouldn't be sitting right here right now, I'll tell you. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, pull that mic a little closer if you don't. Yeah, just grab the.
I keep forgetting
I
not
know,
to
it's
grab that part.
It's fine. You're not gonna break anything.
There you go.
It's
Snug it in there.
Yeah.
Hello.
Well, we're back, and I guess we're gonna move past the video game conversation and talk about and it's not your newest venture because you've been working on it since before Borders. But you're finally, I guess it's finally becoming a work now.
Yeah. I would say it's now a product. Now,
The Legend of Polloman.
yes, the Legend of Chicken Man. For
Chicken
those
Man.
who don't know what Pollo is. Yeah, man, the Legend of Polloman. It's literally my life's work. It all started with I got into 3C Comics. It was a little comic book group that Zach Dubison created.
I know that name. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a local artist. Was a teacher for a while. But he started a little comic book group, and I made this little like comic strip. It was my first comic ever. I was learning how to make comics, and I made one about this like magician named Roberto who gets his ass whooped by a guy in a chicken suit named Pollo Man because he stole the magic churro that's like drug induced or something. Yeah, it was like definitely a lot more R-rated when I first thought of it.
Yeah.
But then we had a theme, and it was like video game themed comic. And at the time,
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
yeah, at the time I was playing Guacamelee.
I've heard of that.
It's a fun
think I've
ass
seen
game.
I've never heard
Think
of it.
Metroid, like the old Metroid.
Okay, yeah.
But Mexican. And it's like awesome, super, just amazing, like Mexican characters,
What do you like
even
the-
delving the Aztec.
Yeah. So it's like
It bosses,
history,
and it's
yeah.
just really, really funny. It's just like really well done. Second one just came out too. It's really cool. You can turn into a chicken. Yeah. But I was playing that game, and I was like, well, shit, like this is the first video game I've ever played in my entire life that had references that only I could understand.
Right.
Like it was like Easter eggs, like for example the Cucaracha song, or like just something really Easter eggy that only a Mexican or someone who grew up in that culture would understand. And I was like, it just felt like this game was like
made for you.
made for me.
Yeah.
Like I actually got to play in the culture that I grew up with, not someone else's culture.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, why the hell isn't there like a fantasy game in Mexico? Like
Yeah.
a
That'd be
fantasy
a great game. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a great game, but shit, no one's done it. And so I was like, well, why don't I try to make a comic about it or something? And so I made this like 8-page like comic of this kid and his sidekick, La Cucaracha, this like cockroach character. And they have to defeat these 6 legends, these monsters. These are all legends that I grew up with. El Raton, the Tooth Fairy.
Yeah.
El Chupacabra, you probably heard of him, the goat sucker.
Good sucker.
El Diablo, the devil. La Lechuza, the owl witch. La Llorona, the weeping ghost woman who steals children. They just came out with a movie too. And then El Cucuy, which is the Mexican boogeyman.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Cucuy? Is that a guinea pig?
No,
No, I'm thinking Cuy.
yeah, Cuy.
Cuy, yeah.
No, but El Cucuy, he's basically the one that was like, if you keep being bad, Cucuy's gonna get you. And so like you just stop doing whatever the hell you're
So
doing.
all these characters in this, and I guess these bosses,
Yeah.
or were something? These are stories you kind of grew up with. These
Yeah.
kind of folk tales.
These are stories. I would tell you 90. I mean, I'm just making this shit up, but like 90% of all Mexicans will know who these characters are.
I mean, that's the cool thing about being from Texas too, is I know half of that. You know,
Yeah.
we know Chupacabra, we know
Chupacabra.
La Llorona.
I didn't know anything about Raton de
See, I didn't know about that either.
Dientes.
That's that deep cut. But like La Llorona, like that's also a Texas folklore thing too. You know,
It's they even consider her like a border story. She was told a lot around the border,
Absolutely,
to keep kids from like being out at night because it's
Running-
dangerous.
Yeah, okay.
It's these stories definitely are Texas, southern Texas especially. It's got a lot of that culture still there because like how I said originally, you know, Mexicans have been here for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my goal was to create the story about this kid because it eventually moved on from just this like hack and slash monster kind of comic to like more like an actual story.
Coming of age tale.
like lore
Yeah.
built into it and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's now become a coming of age story of this young boy named Emmanuel, who's from this small village in Mexico or modern day like village. So it's not like old time village, but he accidentally goes into the underworld because he wakes up when El Raton is taking his tooth and he like crosses over. And so like that's like how I left it off on the final scene where he like crosses over to his
And
like
he's there.
catacomb. So it's like he accidentally is now stuck in this like world. And yeah, so basically he's going to learn that humans are the only ones who can defeat these monsters in the underworld. A human heart. Like everyone else is like these undead citizens kind of thing. Think maybe like Day of the Dead-ish in a sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so basically it's this timid kid who is, you know, he's kind of scared of everything. He doesn't have any confidence. And now he's put into the shoes as the most powerful being in this world.
Because he's human.
Yeah. And so it's like this coming of age story of this guy who like has to learn how to be brave and he's got to learn how to like make sacrifices. And it's just like this really nice coming of age story. But the main thing is I'm trying to teach people about the Nahuatl culture. Nahuatl culture. So the Nahuatl culture, that's actually the indigenous culture of Mexico. So
This is like not Aztec, not...
So it is. So what you would consider Aztec, Aztec is actually a 19th century European term for Nahuatl.
Wow.
So Aztec comes from the word Aztlan, which is the mythical location that the Mexicans or the Aztecs would have came from. So it was just kind of like...
It's kind of like calling Native
Texans.
Americans Indians or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the actual name of the Aztecs is the Mexica,
Okay, I've heard that.
which is where Mexican comes from. The Mexica were the people who lived in Tenochtitlan, which is the main city where Mexico City is today.
Okay.
So where Mexico City was today was this giant-ass city surrounded by a lake.
Yeah.
And then it was drained out when the Europeans came, the Spanish attacked and everything. But I'm teaching people about this indigenous culture because there's an entire language, the language Nahuatl. Nahuatl is the indigenous language of Mexico, not Spanish. Spanish was brought over. And so the magical language of my underworld is Nahuatl. So just how in Harry Potter you're learning Latin
Well,
words.
I was reading what I could find online, and it was like I really had to read everything because the words were unfamiliar to me.
Yeah.
You know, and just it was almost confusing, but it was interesting at the same time. This is none of all of this is made up. Like this is history. You know.
This is actual. That's the thing. It's like I'm basically presenting history in a fun pop culture way.
Yeah.
And you have to do a lot of research, I'm sure, because it's not like you speak Nahuatl. You know, like it's probably almost a dead language in a lot of ways, right? It's kind of like Latin.
Actually, it's spoken by over 1.2 million people
Dang,
in
see,
Mexico.
that's crazy.
It's developed from the classical Nahuatl.
Is it only in certain areas?
And there's different derivatives. You know, like there's
dialects.
Huasteca Nahuatl, there's this Nahuatl, like kind of regional, but it all comes from this base Nahuatl. Like it's not a dead language at all. It's actually survived. But the thing is, we don't know about it.
Yeah, I've never heard
Mexicans
of that.
know more Japanese from anime than we know Nahuatl.
Yeah.
Shit, I didn't even know what the hell Nahuatl was growing up.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, what the hell is Nahuatl? Like, what is all this shit? And it's like, all this has been there. It's just no one talks about it. No one shows it. It doesn't get the spotlight. You know, we don't have a movies about all this stuff. And so I took my time to spend the time to research. You know, I've been learning the language through a classical Nahuatl course. I studied like the hell out of, I read books for once. I started like liking reading because I had to do it. And yeah, I'm taking the history, the actual history, the myths, and then making them into this world that's cohesive. So think like Avatar: The Last Airbender, but Mexico. Think,
I mean, it's prime. It's super prime for you to build a lore, especially whenever not a lot of people know about it. It's something that even when you're reading a graphic novel, you know, like somebody that's not even has origins in that culture would really enjoy it. Like, so you grew up playing video games, right? You play a lot. You ever play a lot of Final Fantasy?
Hell yeah.
Have you ever noticed how many like Mexican folklore things are in Final Fantasy? Like you can summon Quetzalcoatl and all that. Yeah. You know, and it's because like nobody in Japan knows about that, so they just throw it in there, and it's fun, you know?
Right?
Yeah,
and that's what I liked. It's like in Shin Megami Tensei, it's like an underrated series, but they do a lot of that. But it's like, and so far, anything that's like Mexica related has been a sort of surface level. Like you always get the Aztec level.
Yeah, well, it's like in movies whenever they represent like this culture, but they do like a piss poor job of it, and they just make it look like it, but then they speak with a British accent or something.
Yeah, like it's like the mysterious temple with the mysterious people and the aliens, and it's like, dude, this was
Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, it's like no, this was a fucking culture. They had politics. They had their own societies. They had their own way of living. They were very advanced for their time with what they were doing. And so it's like, and there's so much beauty in art that was left behind. And so I'm kind of contemporizing it. I'm using that art style and then contemporizing it with contemporary stories.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you're telling the story of this folklore, but you're also telling the story of this kid and something that people can relate to.
Yeah, and without spoiling anything, the folklore that is Mexican here, actually in the story you'll uncover its indigenous roots. You're gonna learn.
Cool. Very cool.
You're gonna learn. I mean, the best thing I can say is you probably know Tlaloc, the water or rain god. He's the rain god, and so maybe one of these have water element powers because of something of that sort. You know, and so it's like, and the last thing I want to do is info dump or exposition or some you know like. Or
when you're reading a comic, you don't want to feel like you're in a class.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's like my job is to make a good ass story, which with my editor, we've been doing a really great job. The script, all 210 pages of book 1 is completely done.
Wow. 210 pages.
Yeah, dude. It took like, I would say about 6 months, and we're still editing it out. But it's really, I'm surprised to see it because it's like, I want it to be just like Lord of the Rings, dude. Like people know Elvish, this made up language,
like Klingon.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like people learn Elvish and Klingon. Well, shit, they're gonna love Nahuatl, and guess what? You're actually learning something that can be applied in the real world
for sure.
Yeah,
and so that's my goal is to make. I was telling someone the other night. I want to make Nawaboos. You know how there's weeaboos? People who are obsessed with. I want to make Nawaboos. Like I want people to nerd about this stuff as I am. Yeah, because it's just so rich.
Yeah, it is. It is very rich.
And I'm looking at the book right now, and it's like where do you get your inspiration for the illustration style? It's really it's really interesting.
The illustration style, I would say, so. I started off as a printmaker my first year of college, and so I feel like that's where a lot of my heavy blacks came from. Like
it's got a lot of contrast.
The solid kind of graphicness.
The line work, it's very it's very.
It kind of reminds me of like old school Nickelodeon in a way.
Honestly, I would say, like I told you, growing up, I didn't have art books. I had video games and cartoons.
Yeah.
And so I feel like most of my artistic inspiration kind of came a lot from video games and cartoons, specifically Paper Mario.
For sure. Oh,
I fucking love Paper Mario.
Paper Mario's legit.
I could definitely see that.
Their character designs are always so fun and bubbly and interesting. And so when people ask me that, like where my style comes from, it's hard for me because
It's probably
hard to pin
just an
down. It's
amalgamation,
everything.
you know.
it's an amalgamation. Courage the Cowardly Dog was a huge inspiration of mine growing up.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, Courage the Cowardly Dog.
It's definitely kind of like, it's not rough, but it's got like it's just that high contrast kind of.
I can see courage in there for sure.
Yeah.
You can see a lot of influences when you want to look at something. You can pretty much just like put your own spin on whatever. You know, I see Hey Arnold's. You know, it's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I totally grew up in the I grew up in the '90s, so like all those '90s cartoons, that's where my life
Hey
was.
Arnold and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that.
You know,
Yeah.
and so
Let me ask you this: how much have you had to study or try to like work out sort of like the hero's journey? You know what I mean? Like hero storytelling. There's different schools of thought, but did you have to read? Did you have to read that book, the famous textbook Story? Anything like that?
yeah. So how I said I had to put it down for a while after I made my first like 8-page teaser sort of thing, because my storytelling was not strong at all.
Yeah.
I felt like at that point, I didn't really have a good story to tell. It was just kind of like, cool, you got this hero with a sword and monsters.
It was all the substance was there. Yeah.
Right. But now I spent 2 years. I read The Hero's Journey.
Mm-hmm.
I read so many articles on storytelling. I watched like every show that I should have watched growing up and just kind of started analyzing storytelling. I had to study it and it just like, and I think I would say it took me about 2 years to learn how to be a good storyteller.
Yeah.
And I guess it was already there. Like the story has not really changed in the broad scope of things, but all the details are like being filled in.
Yeah.
And making the nuances and the character development. I've learned about character development and yeah, so it took about 2 years to just kind of make it from this is a cool looking thing to this is a story that might resonate with a shit ton of people. And not only is this going to be a good story, hopefully, I can't be too cocky, but it's going to have that substance. So it's going to be the best of both worlds.
Right.
So, yeah, I would say I've learned that writing is the hardest skill, not drawing, for me at least. I love drawing, and it took me a shit ton of time. It took me 4 years of college to get from, where I am today. But writing has really shown me that it's hard.
Yeah, I believe it.
Because there'll be times where I'm staring at the screen and I'm like, what does he say? How do I go from this scene to that scene? I feel like something that really helped me was script writing. I wrote the pilot episode back in February of last year for a Sundance Festival competition.
Okay.
I didn't get it in, but writing that script, I feel like helped me learn how to do script
because
writing.
it's different than just writing like a story or a book. You have he says this, and then this happens, and then he says this, and then this happens, and that happens. It's a different form of writing.
It really is. And so just kind of, I had to learn how to write. I think storytelling in movies really helped me. I feel like I've gotten more storytelling from movies and shows than I have from
they're
comics.
both a visual medium too.
Yeah. Because like I said, my first comic I ever read was in college. I'd never read a comic beforehand. Maybe
You never read a comic before college?
No.
Okay.
Maybe Captain Underpants. I think that's the
Gotcha,
closest thing. Like I said, I lived in Port Arthur. I didn't have access to all this. I didn't have any friends who liked comics and stuff. And yeah, it's weird, right? Like I didn't read any comics until college. And so I feel like having that sort of isolation from comics, isolation from high art, and then going into it like sort of blind.
Yeah.
I feel like that kind of helped me kind of not mimic sort of like not be like, oh, I'm doing everything, but I'm super inspired by Deadpool and you can totally see like my character is pretty much Deadpool, or stuff like that. Like I felt like it let me just
almost free of influence.
Yeah.
It's like you instead of being influenced and then putting that on the page, you had an idea, you put it on the page, but then you had to go and soak up the knowledge that you needed to make it what you wanted to be instead of just using the knowledge you already had.
Exactly. Yeah. It was like learning the medium so I can make the idea. And so it instead of looking at all these ideas and then putting them into the medium. And so, yeah, this like I said, the story has been, a lot of the story is based off like personal experiences. And so I feel like that's where the writing kind of has helped, is that like I'm not afraid to be open with like shitty experiences that have happened that can relate to, some other 10-year-old Mexican kid who's looking at this book, or whether he's Mexican or not, because it's not written in a way that's going to be exclusive to anyone.
Sure. Well, that's the good stuff in storytelling, is like the shitty parts that people can relate to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what everybody reads stories for. No one wants a plan to go off without a hitch. You know? Yeah. I mean, right. It's yeah. The hero went off on his journey, and sure enough, he did good. The end.
He done good.
Yeah.
He done good.
He done good.
No
No, they
problems.
want the adversity,
Yeah, and I'm kind of a masochist in that sense. Like the way I write my characters is like they go through some shit.
Yeah.
And like I'm not nice to them and stuff. And it's like I like it when
the world's not nice.
Yeah. I like it when I see a kid show and you can tell it wasn't written for kids.
Yeah.
But it was written strategically in a very mature way.
Right. I love that too. Yeah.
Like it's like oh shit, that was a really real moment in this kid cartoon.
That's the kind of kid cartoons we grew up on now. I don't know if you've tried to watch kids cartoons now, but they kind of have sort of sanitized them or bleached them or whatever, where they take any of that stuff out.
Yeah,
Except for a few.
I would
but
say
most of them. Yeah.
one of them that really struck me recently was Gravity Falls and Hilda on Netflix. The writing on there is just so like one specific scene was the mom is a graphic designer and she lost her job. So in the next episode, because their house got crushed or whatever, in the next episode she had to go work at like the supermarket, and she didn't really like it. And it was like that was such a real moment.
Yeah.
Like graphic design person
Right.
having to go, work supermarket.
job.
That was like the dream crushing reality
Yeah.
that you could see. Yeah.
And so I have those same, I guess that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I guess something to talk about with it is some of the success I've had with this guy. Like this chapter I produced in between May and July, working 10 hours a day, no weekends off, just like sit down on my ass and draw.
How do you do it digitally or on page?
So I did it digitally because I bought this it's like a big
Wacom tablet?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the big one where you draw on the
Oh, that's great.
screen.
Oh, that's great.
It was such a great investment. I got the UG.
Like an iPad Pro series, but it's huge.
Yeah. It's like the Cintiq is what
Okay,
you would
yeah,
call it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I
for
got
sure.
like an off-brand that's like a fourth of the price and still is good
Yeah.
because I'm not paying $2,000.
Jeez.
I wish I had it, but so I spent like 3 months straight drawing this guy out. Finished it right before my event at Texas Latino Comic Con in Texas, in Dallas, and I went there, sold it, and
Was
stuff.
that a big event?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah?
pretty big event. I'd recommend it. It's annual.
It's a Mexican
It's
American.
Texas Latino Comic Con,
Wow.
and it's like basically.
Is there a big comic book world in Mexico? Or
No.
in Latin American countries, or
I would.
they just ingest whatever's out there?
Yeah, and that's a big problem because, like my friend who we work on like Mexican stuff together, or we started Malco Studios to create Nawa type video games.
Yeah.
There's this term in Mexican culture called what was it called? Was it called malinche? Malinchismo. Yeah, I think it's called malinchismo. And it's basically Mexicans are sort of, they look down upon Nawa stuff.
Yeah.
Oh.
They see it as like, why don't you do something more original
Yeah.
instead of doing stuff about your own culture? But it's like, there isn't enough of this stuff.
There's not any.
It would be like Japanese people not embracing their Japanese culture.
Mm.
Well, they did for a while. So, yeah.
They did for a while.
Yeah.
But, they definitely, I mean, you got Pikachus on their airplanes,
Yeah.
Like, they definitely...
Yeah, but see, Pikachu isn't rooted in like their original culture. That's something they made up after they were Americanized.
Well,
that would be like, I think it
or
would
like
be like,
Inuyasha.
yeah,
or,
there you
or
go.
some of the other animes.
Yeah, like all the
that do
demons
have
and yeah,
the
like pushing that
yokai
away. Yeah,
specifically. The yokai, like the oni in Beppu. There's like the oni baths where it's like the horned like demon.
right.
And they have this giant statue of them. They have like oni sort of stuff. But in Mexico, you don't really have like a cool location with like Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah, you don't
or-
have like a Studio Ghibli in Mexico.
Exactly.
Yeah,
For sure.
And man, that's what I'm hoping to do.
that's what you want.
It's like this project
That'd be
is
really cool.
my attempts to create the first Mexican fantasy universe.
Wow.
That people, there's a language, there's a world map. The world map is based off the actual world map of the different like tribes that were there. I wouldn't even call them tribes. They were,
They were
they were
full-blown
city
cultures.
states.
Yeah,
They were
tribes.
city
Yeah,
states.
yeah.
That's what they called themselves. And so it's like trying to bring all this history, contemporize it with the I guess the story
With the backstory,
and the colors, and make it almost invisible to the consumer that you're learning something.
Sure.
It's like it's almost like if I would have made all this shit up, but I didn't.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. Well, it's very digestible, man. I love it. I love the art style. I love everything about it. And just the like the lore of it is in such a way that's like really appealing to me because I don't know half of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really don't. I don't know half of it. So it's got like a whimsy to it that I really resonate with. It's going to be cool.
Thank
I'm
you.
really excited about reading it.
Do you have are you releasing it in Spanish language too?
Man, I would hope so. So actually, with the whole publishing stuff, I got accepted into Worldcon, or I got invited to Worldcon, which is a sci-fi fantasy festival in
great.
Los Angeles. No, not Los Angeles, San Jose. I went last year, and the whole thing was John Picasso. He is the first person in the 75 years of the entire event to be Mexican and be nominated to be the host.
Oh wow.
He is the guy who's done the covers for George R.R. Martin's books.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. Fantastic.
And a bunch of other fantasy guys back in the day. I actually got to meet George R.R. Martin. We got to drink with him in the hotel room and stuff. Cool guy, dude.
Wow.
Really cool guy.
Yeah.
Did he tell you the ending?
No. He hasn't written it yet. No, I don't know. But yeah, so I got flown out there and they sponsored 50 Mexican and Mexican Americans from around the world. And I was one of them. And it was a life-changing experience because I got to meet 49, or not all 49 showed up, but the other like 30-something.
Other people doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and they're Mexican or Mexican American.
Yeah.
But they're all doing something awesome. Like my friend, she just released her book, which I'll tell you about after the podcast. She released a book. She came to New Orleans to study like the voodoo and all that stuff.
yeah.
And she's made a book about it, which
Wow.
is really cool. And it's just so cool to see other Mexican artists creating stuff. And so there I met this one artist who gave me a list of agents because I was like, where do I go next with this thing, right?
Yeah.
And I was on Twitter. I was studying all these agents, and there was only 2 Latino agents out of like 100. And they specifically were looking for graphic novels and underappreciated or undervalued sort of stories. And I spent like 5 hours, dude, like trying to figure out who I was going to send my query to. And I followed her on Twitter. I followed Marietta. And I just like walked out, went to get a sandwich. I'm like, man, that was a shit ton of work just to find someone. And I came back and there was a DM in my inbox. And I was
Wow.
like, okay. And it was her. And she was like, you stole me at Pollo Man. What is this? And I was like,
The name is kind of silly, but I like it.
yeah.
That's dope.
And I was like, oh shit. And she was like, send me everything you got. And so I sent her my stuff. Next day I get a call. She's like, you sold me. I'll be your agent. I will represent Pollo Man.
Wow.
So I'm now with the Galti Zacher agency. I'm one of their people. And to give you an idea, they are actually the agents for Rick Riordan, the dude who made Percy Jackson and all this stuff.
Wow.
So they're like a book agency, like specifically.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
They're a book agency and graphic novels.
Right.
And so she actually helped me she did the pitching to publishers. And we ended up with 3 publishers, all 3 from the top big 5.
yeah.
And there was an auction for my work. And now I got a 2-book deal with one of the largest publishers in the world.
What's the publisher?
I can't say
can't
it
say
here
it yet?
yet. I wish I could, but yeah, the big five.
So you got a 2-book deal.
Yeah,
How many are you planning on doing?
8.
8. Okay.
So I'm
That's
gonna be
cool.
like I'm gonna be an old man.
No, that's okay.
That's
I'm
fun.
glad you only got a 2-book deal because that means when that's done, you can renegotiate.
Yeah,
You'd be like, I got 6 more of these left,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, exactly.
That's,
No, that
that's the power. You got to do that.
So I gotta go get my haircut here in a little bit, but just to wrap it up. So when is book 1 dropping?
So book 1 will be dropping hopefully 2021.
2021. Wow,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
ways off.
Yeah, it's a ways off.
Is there a way people can get your self-published work?
So actually, what's interesting, you can get the PDF right now
Of the whole book?
of this chapter right here.
Awesome.
In color?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, you can
Cool.
get the full colored PDF right now, available on Comic Central.
Okay.
They just named my one of the guys who worked on TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, was one of the jurors for their comics, and I won Best Overall Comic of the Year of 2018.
Wow.
Dang, man.
Plus Best All Age. So
Wow.
so that's going to be available till February 23rd.
Okay.
The PDF, and then also got some posters going right now
Yeah. Okay. So you got merch and stuff. That
yeah, I
people
got
can
some
give
merch
you some support.
to help me between that buffer till the book comes out.
Yeah. And then you have speaking engagements coming up. This will probably come out in March.
Man, Gonzalo
so-
out here doing big things.
Yeah, you're killing it.
You're doing big things, bro.
Why haven't you left Beaumont yet?
Dude, we're poor as hell.
That's the best thing about Beaumont is it's
Yeah,
so
you
cheap
can-
to live
you can
here,
be
Yeah.
poor
and
here
it's
and have a studio.
it's so affordable to live here that you can do crazy stuff like writing graphic novels
Or-
on
or
the
a
side
podcast.
and be manageable, or a podcast.
Or a podcast. Yeah. But
You
yeah,
moved, you moved to Austin. I don't know if you'd be able to do it.
yeah.
Thanks for
By the
staying.
end of the year, we're hoping to end up in Colorado though.
Okay.
We're looking out
Good
in
move.
Colorado. I just love the whole idea of just being away from the Southeast Texas triangle for a while.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I understand. Well, dude, I'm so glad you came to talk to us.
Yeah, man,
No,
appreciate
this
it.
is
It was-
awesome.
it was an honor, man.
Shout out to Chris Presley for bringing you to my attention and good
Yeah,
work.
Chris.
Dude, you're doing great things. I like your
Absolutely, dude.
I like your approach, and I like the meaning that's behind it. It's great. It's good to see.
And
really good to see.
don't slow down, man. I mean,
Yeah.
video games, graphic novels. Keep going. Keep
Yeah, man.
whatever medium you put your mind to, I think you'll conquer it.
Thank
Already
you, dude.
kicked enough
You'll
ass.
you'll
Keep
see
going.
Polloman everything. Polloman sucks at some point, or I don't know.
I'll take it. Let us know when you got.
Sounds good, man.
All
Thank
right.
you guys.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Now let me get a little sippy sip.
Good ASMR.
I hate that shit.
All right, thanks Gonzalo. Thanks for coming by and hanging out with us. We had such a great time kicking it with him, Aaron.
Yeah, dude, it was awesome. It was educational and fun.
Yeah, and if you want to follow more of his work and see what he's got going on, look up Borders. Not Border Crossing. Look up Borders, and then also you can just get to Google with Legend of Polloman, or you can follow him at Instagram or Twitter, any of those. His handle is at Gonzink, GONZZINK.
And also, as always, we want to do a special shout out to our Patreons over on Patreon. We have Jordan Stringer, Lance Killian, Brian Castino, Doug Waldrop, Michael Sarr, and Ben McClellan. Man, appreciate you guys. You guys really do a lot to help us out here. We probably wouldn't be able to get this video going without you guys. And if you're interested in becoming a Patreon of ours, head over to patreon.com/A to Z BMT.
Yeah. All right, next episode features David Poole. David is a local figure who's ran more businesses than I've worked for even.
That's true. It's fair to say that if anything else, he's an entrepreneur. But why we got him on this episode or the next episode coming up is basically because he's the proprietor of
A feed
store, and we wanted to talk about basically what it takes to get you a little spring garden up and running, and then also maybe the differences of back in the day versus now, and the
Yeah.
cultural shifts that are happening about rural America.
Absolutely.
If you have a guest that you think would be a good fit, or if you yourself think you would be a good fit, just send us a message. Or if you just want to tell us, hey, you're doing a good job, or you guys are shit, whatever. But get at us. We're at feedback@A2Zpodcast.com. You can also just message us on Facebook Messenger or
Instagram. Slide
Man,
into
we're
those
really
DMs.
we're really easy to get a hold of. But that's about it. That's it for this episode. Yeah. I had fun. Did you have fun, Zach? Yeah.